Next, we're going to hear from our literary artists. The first is Melody Mickelson from Madelia, and the second is Wilbur Frank from Mankato. They're going to tell us a little bit about how they use their artist grant.
Thank you. Yes, what I've done is I've been writing children's books, unpublished, of course, for a lot of years, mostly for very young children. I've worked with very young children for a long time. This was my first attempt at a chapter book, a first chapter book, which has 5 to 7 chapters in it. And what I've done, because my artwork, I have 2 pieces here, I have 2 pieces upstairs, because they're not together. What I've done is I've just kind of tried taking a photograph, and so that you guys can see them, can look at them. And the story is basically about, oh, I'm sorry. It just decided to do what it wanted to do. The story is about Finn Mousen, and it's a little mouse, and her family, her mother, her father, her granddad, and 2 siblings, they're corn gatherers. And what they do is they gather corn all day, and they grind it, and they make all kinds of goodies with it. They stuff their pillows with corn, and corn is their life. Well, she wants more. And her granddad always tells stories about the outside world beyond corn gathering. And so she decides that's what she wants to do. And so secretly, through a short period of time, she gathers some things, decide that she, the second full moon of the summer, she's going to leave. And so she spends a year gathering what she needs, what she thinks she needs. And along the way, this is Finn, right here. You can't, you'll be able to see her better because I think she's upstairs here. This is Finn. This is her mother up there. And I'll read. I'm going to read just a paragraph of the story eventually. Anyway, so she goes through. She leaves and she has these adventures and meets these friends. She has a rabbit. The first one she meets is a rabbit, and she meets a bumblebee named Susie, and Susie is back there. She meets a squirrel and her young squirrel, and the mom squirrel, so Rosalie. I don't have drawings yet of them, and the little squirrel Burke. And Rosalie makes her a little leaf boat so that she can continue with her journey down this little creek, where she meets another mouse, which she's never met another mouse before, named Kyla. Her name is actually Kyla Mouseford, and teaches her about fairy flowers because Finn's family, they live in, which I forgot to tell you, in the Minnesota Prairie is where they live. So that's kind of the premise of the story, and the first few pages of the first few paragraphs, or most of the first part of the story, is her preparing and her fears and how much she's going to miss and what emotionally she needs to take with her, like loved by her grandmother. Her granddad sings to her to them every night. And she decides she's taking that with her to sing to herself for comfort every night. And she goes through the cornfields, and she goes through a forest and down a creek, and she is introduced to a road, which she's never seen before, and the prairie and the flowers and different things like that. So that's who she is. And this is Kyla, because one of the things that Finn wanted to get was thistle seeds for thistle seed bread that her granddad had told her about. So Kyla introduces her to a thistle plant and is actually sitting up there, which this one is upstairs, throwing down seeds, and so she can put them in her little knapsack and take them home with her. And then this is the little leaf boat, which is back here, and this is Susie. And Susie gives her honey, which she has heard so much, Finn has heard so much about, but has never actually tasted. And so Susie gets an acorn little cap, fills it, and gives it to her so she can take it home, to her family. So that's the premise of the story. I do appreciate the grant. It was a wonderful opportunity for me to spend time with this and with these, which of course I've had to draw several times to get them right. They're done in stippling, which is pointillism dots, tiny, tiny thousands and thousands of dots. I've introduced color into all of them but they're mostly black and white. But there is some color introduced, like in the honey and the thistle, obviously, the little leaves on the boat, and in Finn's sweater that she wears. There's some coloring. So that's where what you'll see. So you have to look very closely to see the dots. There's thousands of them. So what I'll do is I'll read just a paragraph, which I highlighted if I can find it. This is the night Finn leaves, okay? This chapter is called the cornfield. This is the night she goes from her home directly into the cornfield, which isn't as foreign to her, of course, as other places are going to be. Finn lay in her bed listening to the soft breathing of her family and the low grumble of her granddad snoring. Finn waited until she knew everyone was sound asleep and crept from her bed. She dressed and began quietly gathering her things: a small corn pillow, 6 corn muffins, and later when she would gather her knapsack from its hiding place in the small hillock. Finn walked to the door and turned to take one more look at her home. All was quiet except for the crackle of the dying embers in the fireplace and the rhythmic ticking of the small clock on the mantel. Finn sighed, opened the door, and walked out into the night. She knew any adventure starts with the first step. Yet Finn stood there, adjusting her eyes and listening to the night noises. She heard crickets chirping in the grass, spring peepers singing in the scrub trees at the edge of the cornfield. Finn also heard the squeak of a bat flying overhead and a great horned owl calling from somewhere in the distance. Finn took the first steps. She was on her way to wherever the first steps would take her. Finn did not look back at her home, and she did not see the face of her mother standing at the window. Which is when you look at the one of Finn upstairs, you'll see in an upper window is her mother standing there. And from this point, she just gets adventure. And some fears and some near misses. I have this dedicated to my sister Monica because she's the one that convinced me for Finn not to lose part of her tail. So she didn't. So hopefully with this and these illustrations, and I'm going to be doing other illustrations, smaller ones, because as a chapter book, it's not completely dependent on its pictures, it's dependent on its words. For the children, hopefully to get this one published, which will be quite a boom. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. My biography you have, so you know all that I've done. My degree is in art. I'm a photographer, a watercolorist, pen and ink artist, I'm a writer. So I have quite a few hats. I've worked in galleries and frame galleries, and I've had a few pieces published in the newspaper, and I've taught art to children and to adults and to developmentally disabled adults. I've had a lot of years since I've graduated. I have 2 incomplete masters because, of course, masters unfortunately take money. So I have 2 incomplete masters. I go until my money runs out, and then I think I'll start again another time. And I've been in Minnesota for 15 years. I'm currently from Adelia, my husband and I. He's from Adelia, so that's where I live now. And I think that's it. Is there any questions?
Well, good afternoon. I've been sitting here listening to the words of artists, and it fills me with an incredible amount of hope in our world that we have the beauty of the arts that just brings so much hope into the world. So my appreciation to the artists who do that, and I know that sometimes you do that with discomfort because you are maybe an introvert and it's difficult to get up here and speak in front of the mic, in front of people. I want to start by offering words of gratitude to Prairie Lakes and the McKnight Foundation for my mid-career grant as a playwright. I have been writing plays for 22 years now, and I really do appreciate the support in keeping the work that I do going. In honor of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday celebration, I want to start with a favorite quote of mine that really guides me in the work that I do. And I quote, "Everybody can be great because anybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics and physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love." That quote has really guided me in the work that I have done in the disability rights movement for 22 years now. I work in a movement called the self-advocacy movement. And in that movement, it is a civil and human rights movement for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I came to that work through my work as a nurse. I worked in nursing for about 30 years. And then I was introduced to a group called People First. And this is a group that provides opportunity for people with disabilities to be able to speak up about the issues that they are concerned about. When I became involved in the self-advocacy movement in New Ulm 22 years ago, the group had asked me to do something entirely different, which was build a scarecrow. I did not do that well. It fell down, and I did a dance around it. And they said, "Wilbur, you're just really not very good at building scarecrows." And I said, "No, that is not my gift." But they said to me, "Wilbur, you do a pretty good dance around that scarecrow, and you seem to like to be able to talk." So they asked me if I would help them improve their speaking skills so they could go to their legislators and share their issues. Out of that small group of people that I began working with in New Ulm, we started a theater group called the United We Stand Players of New Ulm. I have been with that group for 22 years now and have written a number of plays for them. The other group that has arisen out of my work with the United We Stand Players is called Action Club Theater of Mankato. Action Club actors, before they became a group, came to see the United We Stand Players do a play that I had written at Mankato West High School. And when I was out in the lobby, there were people going, "Well, how come we can't have a theater group?" So I thought, okay, working with our Kiwanis Club here in town and a number of other partners, we were able to start a theater group here. That group has done a number of performances together over the years. But a couple of years ago, the group said to me, they said, "We want to work together to do a play. So Wilbur, how can you make that happen?" I'm like, wow, that's going to be logistically a little interesting, knowing that there's a group in New Ulm and a group in Mankato. So I said, okay, I'll just figure that out and we will move forward. And I knew that it would work because I have a number of wonderful allies and volunteers who help me with that. One of the things that I do, that the gifts that I have found in myself from that early time of the Scarecrow disaster, is I realized that I love to write plays. I've actually been doing that since I've been 4 years old. But I was actually able to, intersect my love of playwriting with my, passion around social justice. And so I began writing these social justice plays around disability issues. I developed a process where I do about 4 sessions of brainstorming with the theater groups. I take all of that material that I learned from the actors, things they're concerned about in their community around disability issues, and then I write. The play is not complete when I hand the script to the actors. What happens after that is I have many sessions where I have to adapt the play. And if any of you have ever seen the play and may have noticed, the plays are being adapted until like the middle of the last performance of the last time. This surprises me. I love it as a playwright and a director. I also direct the plays. I direct from the stage, so I'm also involved in the collaborations. The one thing I want to say to you about the theater groups is that we include anyone who wants to participate. So it doesn't matter who you are. We don't check disability cards at the door. So if you just want to come in and join us, you come in and join us, and we have a lot of fun. We adapt the plays in regards to if a person, I actually have an actor who uses a computer to speak. She does not use words to communicate, but we script all of her dialogue into a computer, and she uses that throughout the play. Many actors say, well, I can't memorize. And so we have developed a technique where we produce mini scripts, and I work with a number of community volunteers and also support staff who stand behind the actors with the mini script and follow them as shadows throughout the play. Our plays do not take any longer than a typical production because the actors have figured out how to do it, and they are very, very good at doing it. The money from the grant that I received, I used to write a play called The Other Side. This was the collaboration piece for Action Club Theater and the United We Stand players. When I brainstormed with these groups, they had a lot of concerns around accessible communities. That's a real concern for them. They want to make sure that everybody in the community has access. They were also very concerned about community inclusion. They were concerned about civil dialogue. How do we talk to each other around difficult issues? And also, they are very concerned about love. It took a little over a year from the time I produced the play, wrote the play, did the brainstorming, to the writing, to rehearsals, until the time we staged this play in February of 2015. It took us time. I have to work with the school district on the scheduling of Mankato West, so that is when we were able to get that. We had over 70 participants acting in this play. And as the play was going on, it was being adapted. For example, I had a group of actors come up to me during the play while it was going on going, Wilbur, just watch what we're going to do next. Okay, wow. So I had some protesters in the play. They just decided they were going to take their protest right down the steps of the stage and right out into the audience. And I think they would have kept going out into the community if they would have, if I wouldn't have gone, oh, wait, come back, And so it's wonderful. I love that the actors feel ownership to do that. Over a course of 2 days, we had over 800 people who attended from our community. I worked with 2 professional musicians, Flint Milligan, who is a brilliant pianist. He basically you can say, Flint, I need a little music that's kind of honky-tonk, and he will just do it from his memory. And we also worked with Amy Cordum, and it was just wonderful working with these professional musicians. All of our productions are donation-based, and so we, after expenses, usually make some sort of donation back to the community, and this time it was to Refugee Services. And I really believe that it was a transformational experience for all of these actors to be able to work together in doing a very difficult play. After dress rehearsal, I have this little thing that I do where I lay down on the stage and I do sort of a little dance, and the actors love that. But I didn't get up for a while and they were concerned. And they said, what's the problem, Wilbur? And I said, this is the thing. I can't believe I wrote such a challenging play and how you rose to the challenge in doing that play. And they were very pleased that I said that. Now they can't wait for me to do that again. But I believe it was transformational for everyone and how we can move beyond a disability label and see the person that is there and how the actors take ownership and can share their gifts and talents. And so I also told you that we speak about love. This is something the actors really wanted to talk about. Not the kind of sentimental love that we often hear about, but a love that is fierce, a love for our community, and a love for each other that shows that there is no separation between you and I, that we are brothers and sisters together. I want to end by reading, I don't typically write poems for productions, but one happened to come out of this for the other side. And so I want to read that. It's called Bread. And we have an actor in our theater group here in Mankato who loves to read poetry, so I wrote this for her, and it's called Bread. How do we come to bread? Is it flour or salt? Perhaps the water is key, or yeast rising like the sun each day. Does it come from human hand, kneading the shape of it, forming dough exquisitely into mound or tube, or is the constraint of pan or not? How do we consider heat in this coming to bread, or the mixture of air and time, or is it all of this? A diversity of ingredient and chemistry and form. Perhaps this is how we come to bread. And even more so in the sharing, the offering, at its most elemental level. We ended our play in Mankato of two communities who could not get along, and through civil dialogue they were able to figure out how to get along with each other. At the very end of the other side, we built a human bridge. It was quite a wonderful sight to see. We ended our play with a song by the Judds. I think that they wrote it for these theater groups. And so I'm going to just say the song, I'm not going to sing it, but this is how it goes. This is the bridge section of the song called Love Can Build a Bridge. When we stand together, it's our finest hour. We can do anything, anything, anything. Keep believing in the power. Love can build a bridge between your heart and mine. Love can build a bridge. Don't you think it's time? Don't you think it's time?